An exciting day as we today conclude the book of Yirmiyahu. Ben Esrim v'Achat Shana, Tzidkiyahu b'Malcho. We're in chapter 52. It's the same chapter as we had at the end of the book of Kings. Tzidkiyahu was 1 year old when he became king. He reigned for 11 years. V'Shemimo Chamutal bat Yirmiyahu milivna. And the name of his daughter was Chamutal, the daughter of Yirmiyah, not the author and prophet of our book. A different Yirmiyahu. Our Yirmiyahu is from Anatot. This Yirmiyahu is from Livna. And Tzidkiyahu did not listen to God, just like the king who preceded him, Yehoyakim. Indeed, Jerusalem and Yehuda were made God angry until God sort of took his vengeance, his retribution on by getting rid of them. Tzidkiyahu rebels against the king of Babylon. That's one way in which God gets angry, in addition to the other ways, because of course Yirmiyahu, we know in the second half of this book, has said over and over again, submit, submit, submit. It's in the 9th year, L'malcho, b'chodesh asiri, b'asor lachodesh, b'nevuchad, retzar melech Bavel, hu v'chol chelo al Yerushalayim, v'achanu alev v'yivnu aleha da yek saviv. So it's in the 10th day of the 10th month of the 9th year, what we call Asara B'Tevet, of the reign of Tzidkiyahu, the king Nebuchadnezzar comes with his armies against Jerusalem, and they lay siege to it, and they build towers all around it. And they remained in siege until the 11th year of Tzidkiyahu's reign. And the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine became terribly acute. There was no food left. And the wall of the city was breached. So the wall was breached. Is it breached because maybe the Jews are trying to get out? Common understanding, of course, is that it's the Kastim, the Bavlim. The Babylonians know, the Chaldeans know that Yerushalayim is, people are on death's door, and thus now is the time to enter into the city. And all the soldiers flee. They leave the city by night, and they go through what's called the King's Garden. But it doesn't matter which way you went, because the city is completely surrounded. But the troops of the Kastim, they chased after the king, and they caught up with Tzidkiyahu near the Jordan, near the steps of the Jordan, and at that point he was basically all alone. And so they took the king to the king of Babylon, to Nebuchadnezzar in Rivla, which is sort of in Syria today. And they put him on trial. And the king took Tzidkiyahu's sons and he slaughtered them, with Tzidkiyahu looking on, along with all of the high officials that were left. And he blinded Tzidkiyahu's eyes. Right, you were blind. You should have listened to me. You weren't obedient. And so the king placed him in fetters and brought him to Babylon, where he remained in prison till the day of his death. And so on the 10th day of the 5th month, which is the 19th year, King Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Bavel, the general of the army, the chief butcher, however you want to put it, came to represent the king of Babylon in Jerusalem. And he burned down the house of God and the house of the king. All the houses of Jerusalem, he burnt everything down. And also all of the everything was destroyed. The walls were torn down. And the few people who remained in the cities, the defectors who'd gone over to the king of Babylon, and whatever remained of the artisans and the craftspeople, were taken and sent sent into exile towards Bavel. But they did leave some of the poorest people there, which of course we learned about earlier with Gedalia being in charge of them and his assassination, etc. And so Nebuzaradan left these poor, and he left them to be. They could have vineyards, and they could harvest, and they could and plant, etc. They broke all the bronze columns and the stands, and they carried those all to Babylon. This is verse 18. They took all the pails and the scrapers and the bowls and the ladles and all the other vessels, bronze vessels that were used. And they took the gold and the silver, basins and fire pans and sprinkling bowls and pails and lampstands, ladles and jars, and they brought them all to Bavel. עמודים שניים היה מאחד, והבקר 12 נחושת אשר תחת מכונות אשר עשה מלך שלמה לבית אדוני, לא היה משקל לנחושתם, כל הכלים האלה, the columns and the tank and the 12 bronze oxen that supported it, everything which Shlomo had given to the Beis HaMikdash, all these things were taken. והעמודים 18 אמה קומת העמוד האחד, וחוט 12 אמה יסופנו, ועלביו 4 אצבעות נבוב. And the columns, which were 18 cubits high and 12 cubits of the circumference, right? So they bring all these things, and the bronze capital or crown that was on it, Saviv hakol nechoshet uchael lamudei shneim rimonim. So talking about the different columns which have pomegranates built into their meshwork or carved into their meshwork. Vayu rimonim tishim v'shishia rucha kol rimonim mea al hashvacha al hasvacha saviv. 96 pomegranates in total facing outwards, and all of the pomegranates around the meshwork, there were 100. ויקח רב טבחין את שריה כהן הראש ואת צפניה כהן המשנה ואת שלושת שומרי הסף. And so the chief butcher, the executor, the general, the killer, Nebuzaradan, he took Sariah, the high priest, and Sephania, the deputy, Scan, the second in command, and 3 guardians of the threshold. ומנעיר לקח סריס אחד אשר היה פקיד על אנשי המלחמה ו7 אנשים מרואי פני המלך שרמסו בעיר ואת סופר שר הצבא מצביע על תם הארץ ו60 איש מעם הארץ הנמסו בתוך העיר. And he took a eunuch who was in command of the soldiers and other important royals and scribes, 60 people of the common people. ויקח אותם נבוזראדן רם טבחים וילך אותם אל מלך בבל רבלת. He took these 60 people and he brought them to Nebuchadnezzar, who was in Rivla. Vayakel Tamelch Bavel Yemitain Rivla Ba'eretz Chamat Gel Yuda Me'al Maton. These 60 people as well were killed by Nebuchadnezzar, along with the children of Tzidkiyahu. And this demonstrates that Bnei Israel, here it says Yehuda, because of course the 10 tribes, the Israel has already been exiled, but now we see that Judah was exiled as well from its land. In verse 28, this is the number this is the number of those whom Nebuchadnezzar exiled in the 7th year, 3,023 people from Yehuda. The 18th year, there were another 832 people. And the 23rd year, they exiled 745 more members of Yehuda, the total 4,600 people. And just like the book of Yirmiyahu, we don't want to end it in a sad note. So too here. It's now the 37th year of the Galut of Yehoiachin. That was, if I remember correctly, about the year 597. So it's about the year 560 or so. And what happens? So we're in the 25th day of the 12th month. Usually we think of a different religion when we think of 1225. Nasa Evel Mardoch Mirodach Melech Bavel B'shnat Malchuto et Rosh Yoyachin Melech Yudavi Otseoto mi Beit HaKela. So Evel Marduk, who is then the king of Babylon after Nebuchadnezzar, he goes and he removes Yechonia or Yehoiachin, different ways that his names are pronounced or are written. He removes him from prison. Vayidaberi Tovo, and he speaks with him beautifully. And he takes his throne and puts it in a place of honor above the other kings who were with him in Babylon. Does this mean always that there were other kings in Babylon, or is this when, like in the last chapter, when the tribute was made and all the other kings would come to bend the knee and show their tribute and give extra taxes? He removed his prison garments, and Yechonia ate regularly in the presence of the king the rest of his life. And a regular daily food was given to him by the king of Bavel each and every day for the rest of his life. Much like we said when we finish the book of Kings, the hope is here. We've moved from the destruction of Jerusalem and the Jews to the end of the book, the destruction of the enemies of the Jews. But now what we get into here at the end of the book is this transformation, this hope. The king has been restored. He's no longer the lowest on the totem pole. He's being respected by the king of Bavel, and hopefully that will remind us that he's also thus respected by God, and thus the Jews, as predicted by Yirmiyahu, will return. So with that, we say chazak, chazak, v'nichazek. We say we should be strong in Hadron Allah. Sefer Yirmiyahu. We will return to you now that we have completed you the book of Yirmiyahu, a book of disaster, but a book also of hope. And tomorrow we will continue joyously with the book of Yechezkel, Ezekiel.